4.5 million women advance in their careers, creating opportunities for growth and engagement.
When you're designing something for everybody to use in the world, you really have to think about what that experience might feel for someone. People actually are more alike than they are different when it comes to core communication.
If you want an engaging audience, there has to be a trust and engagement in the platform. So creating a safe space is one of our primary goal. We had to look at privacy and safety at every module we introduce into the platform.
Strategy and creativity are two sides of the same coin.
We ask our product managers to wear the hat of a woman, right? When she comes into the platform, even while gathering requirements, look at yourself. If you are her, what would you need?
HerKey is India's largest career community for women, which helps to nurture, support, and elevate her in her career aspirations.
So especially when you talk about content, it is super important to ensure, on a women's career platform, you need to be very sensitive to the content. Right? So, and we have to put in data privacy and profanity, for example, right? Sanitizing the content in place. So we have to put all of these guardrails in place.
Your first version has to directionally point you toward your final destination.
AI could be a great tool to help bring inclusivity.
The more your team represents your user base, the better your products will be.
Product Talk with Malthi.
Hello everyone to this episode of Product Talk with Malthi. Yeah, and this is a very special episode because this time I do not have one guest, but I have two incredible guests. Yeah, we have Priyanka, who is the Chief Design Officer at Dream Level, and we have Muru, who is the Chief Technology Officer at HerKey. Welcome, both of you. Priyanka and Muru, in your threads is that you both have been at some point or time involved in building social platforms, right? And that is going to be the theme of our today's episode. Yeah, where we're going to talk about that. How do you build inclusive social platform products, right? So, tell me, probably I'm going to start with Priyanka, right? Tell me about your experience of building social platforms. What grows in building a thriving, inclusive community?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we're building for WhatsApp, a product like WhatsApp, right? Inclusion has to start, like you have to start with inclusion, because a product like WhatsApp that almost serves close to 3 billion people on a daily basis. You cannot have personas. You cannot have like this type of a person uses the app in a particular way, or this type of a person uses it in another way. It is a global product that is the same for everybody. There are no versions of WhatsApp. There's no version for India and one version for Brazil. It's the exact same product. So you have to start from a place of inclusion. So it really comes with empathy for all your users. I think one learning I had at WhatsApp was that people actually are more alike than they are different when it comes to core communication and things like that, things we do on a day-to-day basis. So it made it a lot easier for us to even just use our own experiences as a starting point versus doing a lot of research and all of that, and then we iterated from there. So I think like you just have to think of like when you're designing something for everybody to use in the world, you really have to think about what that experience might feel for someone who is, let's say, if I'm in the US and I'm communicating with my family in India. What are the things like that? What are the things that will get in the way of that communication, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like, are you designing and building products that will work in any connection, low bandwidth, high bandwidth? When you send photos and videos, are they going to play properly, or are they going to be choppy? And how are you going to compress them such that you don't lose quality but they're also optimized? So all of these things, I would say, are a part of inclusion when you're building like global social platforms.
Yeah, no, I think starts from the home, right? As you said, people are more alike than they are different. I think that's a brilliant statement, and you're right. Customer empathy, I mean, is at the core of it, right? And okay, yeah, thank you. So, Muru, what has been yours? Especially you have been, building something more inclusive, especially from a gender lens perspective, right? So, what is your take on it?
Yeah, like, Malti, first of all, I think HerKey, I'll have to say we are actually getting closer to 5 million women. So it's not
Yes, the
4.5.
number.
So we're actually marching much faster than we are. So, yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah, as Priyanka said, customer empathy is one aspect, but, I'll probably add a little more insight, what we particularly do in HerKey. And that's more specific to women, right? So when we look at our cohort, we have a very broad umbrella of women as our super user in our platform. So, I'll start off with HerKey is a great example to talk about. You talk about social platform. Of course, my edtech journey would be very different because that was a very education focused and university focused kind of a platform. But HerKey is a great example to talk about my experience, right, in terms of social platform. If you look at HerKey, it was before it became HerKey, it was a very transactional platform, right, where it was more a jobs related aspect of it, and users used to come on a very transactional need for it. And when we actually looked at how do we move this whole cohort to a community aspect or a community social platform, we had to rethink the entire aspect about different cohorts. How do they come into the application? How do they, when you look at the journey of women in a HerKey, perspective, we had to think about growth, engagement, and also re-engagement. One of the biggest aspect when we looked at our platform, what is our user retention? How do we actually re-engage them and give them personalized experience on the platform? So that has been the key aspect when we look at what does it mean for us, and keeping the women's angle aspect towards every element we bring into the platform, right from an onboarding all the way to a recommendation what we give to a women, right? So all these aspects, another thing which we looked at whenever we did, from a tech perspective, is AI is another important aspect we have to consider in every aspect of the platform, and it needs to be plugged in different areas, to provide a modern experience on the platform. So I think in that aspect, HerKey is a little special from a social, so to say, with the professional angle, right? Because we had to kind of fence ourselves around the career aspect, in terms of content, in terms of users, the perspective when they come into the platform, they need to have this career aspect towards it wherever they go, right? So
Yeah.
so we want to kind of keep it a little social, but also try and fence it around the career aspect of a woman. So that I think would probably be a biggest experience we learned, and what we are actually on our journey in building this platform.
Yeah, no, those are some, and you're right. I mean, it's not pure play, a very social platform, but also very career oriented. So I think if I can just summarize, it's while whatever is the larger objective, social is definitely a great way to enable engagement, communication. But I think a platform should never lose track of what is its core purpose for which it exists, right? Now, yeah. So with that, right? I mean, if I move back to Priyanka, your journey of building social platforms, right? I mean, 50% of your target persona were women, right? Now, today we have students, I mean, very young age, we kind of get access to technology,
Yep.
internet, right? And there have been, while there is a lot of goodness in it, we cannot do away with the dark part of it, right?
Yep.
So when we are kind of building these platforms, right, not only from a woman perspective, but largely I would say that what are some of the guiding principles, how do you balance, creating those open, engaging spaces, but at the same time ensuring safety and privacy for the persona, especially with a woman, it gets even more sensitive.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a good question, actually. This is something, this is, it's like a never-ending thing. It's something you're constantly looking into and you're evolving as you learn about your users and, the kind of interesting troubles. Like, it's not the right way to say it, but every time we would come to India for user research or go to any other country and talk to women, especially, you would hear very interesting ways that they would feel unsafe on the
Hmm.
platform. Things that you won't even think of, sitting in the US. So I think there's two ways to think about this. One is what can you do on your platform to be proactive? Like how can you proactively prevent harm and create safe spaces? And then the
Hmm.
other way is, of course, like how can you sort of swiftly resolve issues that are being brought up to you a little more reactively. So I think, and I think a lot of social media platforms do this. Like they do provide a lot of proactive sort of communication or tools, or give a lot more control to the user
Correct.
to actually report any incidents, or like to take control of their privacy.
Correct.
But I feel there's a lot more that needs to happen in making those tools and those options accessible. They're usually like several taps inside. You have to really be intentional, looking for them. So if you as a user, or if me as a woman on like one of these social platforms, I want to set up, like put on a bunch of privacy settings from the start, it's really hard. Like I almost will do it when I've faced some issues, right? So I think that is something we need to like really do better on social platforms.
Right.
The other thing is, I would say, we also should look at things like better defaults, right? So when you think about safety, right, it's not just for women, it's for any user. So let's take WhatsApp for example, right? Your phone number is exposed in WhatsApp. Maybe we shouldn't expose it, right? So it's like it's like such an obvious thing, but I mean, I know it's technologically a very big thing to do, but things like that, where you can sort of like maybe mask a phone number. Maybe if an unknown person is reaching out to me, maybe I can control and say no. Like if I don't know this person should not be able to reach out to me. What happens today is I get an unknown message, I have to go block, report, do all those things. It's easy to do it, it's upfront, but it's still something that now my number is already out with this person. So I think having more of these like safety mechanisms in place and evolving them as the user behavior evolves. And also like tech literacy has gone up a lot over the years,
Hmm.
right? But I
Correct.
don't think our safety mechanisms have necessarily kept up with this. And I think this is where AI can actually be leveraged a lot, because AI is the new buzzword. Everybody wants to use AI for everything. But I really feel this is an area like integrity and safety, customer support. Like AI can actually probably respond
Hmm.
or resolve issues a lot more swiftly than like having, just like speaking to somebody, for example.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm probably
Yeah.
going a little bit on a tangent here, but I think you just have to make these. We have these controls today. We just have to make them a lot more accessible for our users, especially women. And you just have to make the product very approachable, I feel.
Right.
Because if we start to like just hide things away and say, oh, when people really want it, they can go find it, it's usually too late.
I agree. Yeah, and especially for some very emotional aspect of things, or some basic hygiene, right?
Yeah.
Trust and all. Once broken, it takes a lot. You kind of literally probably lose your users by then.
Yeah, I mean, all these things, right? You start chipping away. Like, trust is not something that just erodes in a day.
Correct.
You just, by not providing certain things, or like not really focusing on user safety and things like that, you start to chip away like at the trust aspect, and then one day it's gone, and then it's really, really hard to bring it back.
I agree. I agree. I agree. And in fact, I remember in one of the platforms, they kind of came up with this feature where people can discover each other, right?
Mm.
And I was initially very curious to see, okay, how it works. And then I realized that, oh my God, it's very precisely taking my location. And the very
Hmm.
next thing that I did was that disable it.
Yeah, it can be, these can be like, it's like the pros and cons of technology, right? It's cool if you want to discover some people around you. Let's say you're at a mixer or something, but it's also very invasive. Like, how do you balance this? It's always
Exactly.
like a tough one.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, just to kind of also conclude on one of the things that you said, right? I had attended one talk a few months back, which actually spoke about it, how AI could be a great tool to help bring inclusivity, because it has a lot of that intelligence that can be fed, where it is able to predict, some kind of a things, and could be a great enabler for helping with the designing more inclusive products.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see like what sort of innovation comes out of this
Right.
space, actually.
Yeah, right. So, over to you, Muru. Muru, what has been your experience, right? I mean, I think I have been party to this, and I know that there were lot of these protocols, lot of these things which we kind of already built for so that we don't have to deal with a lot of these not very welcome visitors on our platform. But you want to kind of talk about a few things?
Yeah, and if you look at HerKey goal, right, we have to create a safe space, and it's the trust element both of you all touched on, particularly being a woman, right? If you want an
Right.
engaging audience, there has to be a trust and engagement in the platform. So creating a safe space is one of our primary goal. Being HerKey as a platform. And when you look at safety and privacy, as Priyanka mentioned, we had to look at privacy and safety at every module we introduce into the platform, right from a design, when we start looking at it. And you all touched about AI. We actually had to do a lot of, I'll start with name, right? We had to run name through AI and find out, is this a woman or a man, right? Example, Kiran is a man as well as a woman, right? So there are guys with names like that, from an Indian context, if you look at, right, and Rahul, for example, right, or Rohit. So, and these names can actually probably even somebody can impersonate and say it could be a woman also. So when we onboard users, we have to wear a lot of these. And in fact, we have, as we go down the conversation, I'll also talk about the kind of users we onboard on our platform. It's a career platform for women, but we also have men and others on the platform, right? So we call something like a for her, and her is her actually primary role, and then we have for her. So we also have to look at, even from a technical aspect, when I look at the platform, it is important to design access controls and also have role management across different parts of the platform, right? We can't let anybody do anything on the platform, right? So as I said, women is our super user. Definitely, she is the top most privileged user on the platform. But women could come in different roles, right? She could be a job seeker, she could be a champion, she could be an ambassador. Various roles she could come on the platform. We have different cohorts at different stages of her career. She wears a different role on our platform, so we have to honor that and ensure, one is giving her all the privilege, but also safeguard whatever information is captured on our platform. So that role management and access control is a very important aspect of it, and data privacy. And Priyanka, you just touched upon phone number. In our case, if you are a job seeker, we kind of get the entire resume of the person, right? So we know everything about the women's phone number, address, and so on. So data privacy is something we really look at, securing on a platform, right? And it's only given on need basis at different aspects when you look at the platform. And another important is, when you talk about social platform, we are a content platform. So especially when you talk about content, it is super important to ensure, on a women's career platform, you need to be very sensitive to the content. And so, and we have to put in data privacy and profanity, for example, right? Sanitizing the content in place. So we have to put all of these guardrails in place. And I think one of the other things we discovered very quickly after releasing the product is we need to have block, like report and block, right? So
Yeah.
an abuse of report, and we actually built a workflow. If somebody reports, we actually do an auto block. So we learned it, like, quickly blocking and tackling this was a very important aspect in the platform. So because I'm sure when you talk about social platform, trolls are unavoidable, right? They'll definitely come in. Intentional, unintentional doesn't matter, but still, we have to ensure our users feel that it's safe and secure. So these are things actually, we had to put in place, and touch wood, things are good, and we're still working on. As Priyanka said, it's not a one time done and dusted, right? And this is an evolution, and AI is one aspect. We definitely use it a lot, even for running through names, running through patterns, and see if this is genuinely a woman versus others, right? So those are things which are actually, it will be a ongoing thing, and we'll refine it as we go on. But at least, to make the audience comfortable, right? Today the women come on the platform, do a lot of posts, and I'll talk about a little bit of features. They do sessions for various topics. So I mean, that's all going great. So we don't want to actually disrupt the experience, right? At the same time, we on the back end we continue to keep this as our core focus in providing safety for women there.
Yeah. No, no, that is absolutely fair. So, Murud, I'm going to ask you a slightly different things, right? For example, if you look at right now, right, we all are using AI left, right, and center in a lot of product development. And while we probably work on some known use cases, there are scammers who have already started to use AI to, whether you talk about voice impersonation, deep fakes, there are a lot of those challenges, right? So, a question I would have is that while there are important elements of engagement, core value proposition. But then we are building a lot of these things around guardrails, right? Which is around data privacy, a lot of things that you spoke about. What happens to your product development lifecycle? You're an engineering leader, right? All this just adding on to your making your roadmap super heavy. So how do you manage that?
It is a tough balance. No, great question, but it's always hard to always push through technology and business, right? It has to go hand in hand. Especially when it comes to privacy and safety, we give that highest importance for sure. We probably negotiate on a feature value, but these are elements we don't actually compromise on. In that, you're right. AI is one. We also use AI in different areas, but particularly in this aspect, not only trust but also verify.
Hmm.
That's what I would say. That's a very general practice. I tell my team also, you can trust everything which comes out of AI, but verify, right? So we have one layer which is going to confirm, is this what we need, right? AI is a great tool. It enables rapid development. You can actually use it for different aspects, but how does that get implemented into our platform is something we enforce on the team. So, and our engineers actually bring in a lot of cool things. They keep and AI is super exciting for them. They bring in a lot of things, and sometimes I had to put a break and say, okay, this is exciting, hold on, this may not be relevant for our platform. So
Yeah, because you don't want to kind of overdo in one way
yeah,
or
yeah,
the
yeah.
other and
Yeah.
compromise
It's very
on.
easy to overdo because there's so many things available, right? So they can quickly plug in. So yeah, so
Yeah,
we're very cautious about what to bring in, and we take steps to actually put into the product.
yeah, okay, okay, makes sense. Priyanka, I'm shift the gears a little bit and
Okay.
ask you a little bit more around, the design part of things, right? So, in your journey, right, what has been your experience of balancing creative design leadership and as a strategic thinker, especially in a fast-paced tech environment, right? You have new problems, you have new use cases every now and then. So how do you manage the three paradigms so that design and strategic thinking is also moving as fast as the tech landscape is?
Yeah. So see, I actually believe that strategy and creativity are two sides of the same coin. So
Hmm.
think of it a little bit as like product and design, right? I believe they are two sides of the same coin. They have to work
Right.
hand in hand.
Right.
So you can be creative, but we also have to realize that we are not creating art. We are creating
Hmm.
design for a product that someone is going to use, and
Hmm.
it's going to affect their lives in certain ways, hopefully meaningful ways, and it's going to affect the business as well. So that's the reality. So you have to think about, like, you want to be creative, but you also want to do it within certain strategic guidelines of, like, what are you trying to achieve, what problem are you trying to solve, what is the best way to solve this problem, how do you validate whether this solution actually works. So you can try a lot of different variations, for example, and then you can take it to, like, your users and get some validation, or do an experiment or whatever. But you have to be creative within certain guardrails. And I think there's a lot of room to do more of it. I feel we don't do enough of it because sometimes the constraints, there's a saying that constraints fuel creativity. But
Right.
also these days, with, like you're saying, things moving fast and all of that, the constraints can feel like, oh, we just have to work, just do whatever we can within these constraints and get this out.
Hmm.
But my push to my team always is that use the constraints to help push boundaries rather than just pushing out a mediocre product.
Hmm.
It takes a little bit of pushing, takes a little bit of work, takes you have to take a step back every so often just to reevaluate. But that's how I think of it. Like, the two things have to coexist.
Yeah, agree. But do you think being iterative about it, because there is always so much to deliver in a very quick time, right? So
Yeah.
does that help?
Yeah, so I think iteration is great when it's done right. Iteration cannot be one where you just say, okay, I'm just going to, like, stick this together with tape and gum and put it out and just get it out. And then the second version that I do is going to be a great one.
Yeah.
You still have to figure out, like, the design team especially still has to figure out what is that end goal that we want to get to, and how do
Hmm.
we iterate toward it. So your first version has to directionally point you toward your final destination. Because if you're, let's say, 5 degrees off when you start, by the
Hmm.
time you get to the end, you're 25 degrees off.
Hmm.
And by then, what the product you shipped is not solving the problem that you are trying to solve.
Correct.
So you have to be very intentional, and this is where I feel like is the power of design, where you can actually because see, design is nothing but, if I were to just put it very crudely, right? Design is a way of communicating, like what we will actually get to the user, right? So,
Correct.
so this is why I feel design can actually use their superpower to visualize that this is what we are going to build. This will take us, let's say, 1 year to get to that end goal. But over the next 4 quarters, here are the 4 phases we will build and ship. So investing that time early on is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll probably talk about one of the conversations which I had in my podcast, and there was this founder who came in. He said, I have to be also very sensitive that who is my end audience. For example, if I'm building a product in already a crowded market, I cannot expect my MVP to be shitty. It
Yeah.
has to be a high quality MVP. Otherwise, based on my audience maturity and given that they have so much of choice, I will never be able to go beyond version 1.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the fallacy of the MVP, right? Like we think the MVP can be anything, but
Correct.
actually it cannot. And to be honest, look, I just say this. To be honest, when we talk about apps and software products, we are not at the start of something. So AI, you can still say it hallucinates, it does stupid things. Sure, it's very still nascent and developing, but we are not there. Like all the patterns have been established. Mobile phones have been around for, like, I don't know, like what, 2 decades.
Yeah.
Something like that, whatever, right?
Indeed.
So it's like at this point there is no excuse to have a bad MVP.
Agreed. 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 And taking a cue from that, right? Like one of the core ethos of a good design is having a very high quotient of customer empathy, right? That what leads to a great design, leads to a great product thing. How do you as a leader ensure that not it's not the only the product managers or design leaders are not the custodians of customer empathy. Everybody who's there in product development is a custodian of customer empathy. So how do you ensure that your quality, your engineers, your architects are equally empathized?
Yeah, that is daily challenging job for me. Particularly if I have to bring in the diverse needs. Right. If you look at our platform, it is women with diverse backgrounds come onto our platform. So we have to, one of the things I tell my product managers, and Malthi, you've been in this discussion. We ask our product managers to wear the hat of a woman. Right. When she comes into the
Correct.
platform, even while gathering requirements, look at yourself. If you are her, what would you need? Right. So one of the things I think product managers, in fact, we voluntarily also ensure we have diversity in the team. Right? We have 2 or 3
Start from the
product
home.
managers who are women, right? So Malti is a great example, right? So there are men as well, but it's important to have women as a product manager to feel what is actually going to the product, right? So she can actually run through it herself. So that's one thing we encourage our PMs to do. From a developers and engineering standpoint, one of the other thing is we write a very thorough requirement documentation, right? That's one aspect, because tech guys will always build anything, right? You need to tell them what to build, right? So funneling it through that, and the important thing I also tell our testers is, like, understand the user scenarios. They also have to wear a hat of a user while they are testing it, also while the developers are doing it in different stages of development. They also have to test it from that perspective. So that's one. And and stereotypes and biases, right? So they might be looked at from a single dimensional aspect, right? A guy who develops it saying that, oh, I got this requirement, I'm done, right? He doesn't look at the impact. For example, when you're building groups, right, we have to ensure private groups and public groups, or even post, what kind of post actually is visible to different groups of the audience, right? Some of these actually have to be fed into them, and it's a continuous iteration. And I love Scrum. Priyanka spoke about iteration. So we do actually, one of the reasons we adopted Scrum is to ensure we actually build these big features in smaller chunks, right? So, and that helps us to find out what's going on. So yeah, so it is a continuous journey, but I'm trying to get my engineers to think like what our users do, but it's typically a different problem. But we are more or less there. And we also have one of the process we adopted in HerKey is we bring in the business team to do a review before we do UAT. We bring in the for example, a recruiter or a user, actually, or it could be a client services team. They come and actually do a testing, or even marketing for that example, right? They also come and actually play as a user before we do a product launch. So that actually gives us a little more verification, and also a comfort, saying that okay, not only we designed it this way, but it's also delivered in the way we wanted it, right? So so we have those in the process, which actually ensures we are delivering what is actually designed for. So
Yeah. And yeah, I'm kind of witness to this whole party. So we kind of ensure that, it's not only the PMs, and we kind of really try, because again, there is a lot of learning that is happening on a daily basis within the product itself. Of course, data tells you a lot of story,
True.
but unless you speak to your users, you can never truly be there and empathize with them. So yeah, I completely agree. This is
Yeah.
still a lot of work in progress, but I think we're getting
Yeah,
better.
yeah. One other thing I've made as a goal for product managers is they do user reviews and users, conversations every week. So they go talk to our users,
Great.
they talk to our clients, and then bring feedback. That is the best way to learn anything you need from your users, right? So we give highest priority. One of the things we discuss in our product scrum is the feedback which comes from the field, and then prioritize that and actually put it into the roadmap and so on. So, and I think that's helping us really well. They kind of learn the user behavior, they bring in some valuable insights, and then we go from there. So
Isn't it
Yeah.
that's
amazing how it humanizes the data?
Oh,
Like when you look at
absolutely.
data, you just look at all the numbers and then you talk to a user. Two users will tell you something,
Yes.
and then you feel like, oh, I should really solve this
Yep.
problem. Whereas when you look at data and you look at like, oh, this is only affecting 5%, we can like
You're
not think
right.
about this.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And it kind of realizes that, okay, there are so many layers below that you are just completely oblivious to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. And actually, that's what they call as human-centered design, right? Leads
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
building products which are really usable. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we spoke a lot about Muru, where I know you and I work with a very diverse team of both men and women building this fantastic,
Right.
inclusive platform for women for their career. But I also want to talk about, see, we are in a world where there are 50%, right? 50% men and 50%. So your platform also has to be represented with a very diverse cohort, right? Because each group has their own role to play in others' growth and support them, right? So, how do you enable men who can help in thriving and supporting these women and grow in their career? How do you support that?
Yeah, no, great. When we initially started, we thought, women role is enough for the platform, but very soon we realized, we need others also on the platform. So we have two different roles on a platform, which is to be her, which is the her role, and then for her. For her is not only men and others, right? It's just purely anybody who wants to support the career engagement for a woman, right? So we call them as all for her, and we have three different personas actually playing a for her role. It could be employers, experts. Experts could be allies, and then each other, right? Each other is another important element. It's a network. Obviously, when you talk about community, right? Each woman has to support one another. So these employers, experts, and each other is one big area, where we kind of say Forer actually comes onto the platform, and we have a very cool thing, something like if a woman is actually supporting and say she's for her, she is actually there are two roles she plays. One is her, and then also she says I'm for her, right? So then she gets a our purple tag, right? If it's a men, he gets a blue tag, men and others. So it's easy on the profile. So we made it a little more intuitive when you log in and look at your profile, or somebody looks at your profile. It is quite visible on the profile itself what this person is for. So we take care of some of these nuances, and the other thing we take care of is if it's a forer, we also have some of the I spoke about access control and privileges, what you want to give, right?
Right.
For example, men cannot apply for a job because it's a women's career platform, obviously, right? So there are some actions we restrict which are specific to super users versus a forer user. So those are also in place. So to make the experience better, while example, you're on a session, right? Women leaders, for example, there are a lot of women in the organization who are actually playing leadership roles. They create a session for different aspects of what they want to coach and mentor for. And mentor could be a man also, right? There's like example, I could be a great example myself. In my team there are so many women in technology. They look for what can I learn from this, right? What are your experiences? How do I learn this technology, for that example? or
Correct.
even other life experiences also. So men also, for example, there are leadership, why a lot of CHRs are men also, right? Many companies, marketing heads are men. So we actually want to give them also an opportunity to come and actually post on behalf of the company or on behalf of themselves, right, as a role. So for her is another important aspect we consider. They look at providing mentorship, programs, or even learning and coaching they can offer on the platform for the women. So
Correct, correct. And to add to that, we have actually something called as Product Advisory Council.
pack, yeah.
And 60% of that are men, right? So who are so invested,
That's
who are
beautiful.
basically DNI leaders and all,
Yep, yep.
who are as invested in the platform. Yeah, those are, yeah, I mean, it has to be a very, to be with each other, and we all have to thrive in this together and
Yes.
enable each other, right?
In
I
fact,
mean,
we
allyship.
launched Forer in Mumbai. Probably that's where we met Priyanka also. Forer was actually launched on Mumbai Accelerate event. So, and when we launched this new role, so yeah, it is. It's gone well. And in any conference we meet, they talk about what does it mean Forer on the platform. So I
Yeah.
think it's great. Sorry,
Yeah.
Priyanka, go ahead.
No, I was just saying allyship
Yes,
is so important and
yeah,
so underrated.
I
Right.
It's
totally agree.
crazy.
I agree. So much agree. And Priyanka, how has been your journey? Like you have been, a woman in STEM. You have kind of taken such great strides in your career. What has been your journey like?
Oh, so I mean, like, my very first job, I remember I was one of the very few women. Then in some of my jobs, I was the only woman. So I've just accepted the fact that, this is how tech is. But I think as I progressed in my career, I think I just realized that that's not how it needs to be.
Hmm.
And uh, you just have to create opportunities, and you have to bring other women up along with you. So I was given a lot of those opportunities by very strong women leaders, and I really owe my career to them, who actually gave me a way, gave me a lot of rope and let me, like, just put their faith in me to trust, and trust in me to do things. I try to do that. I try to pay it forward every day here. But I think the biggest thing, like, the biggest thing is just your mindset, right? So one thing that, especially when you're like in the minority, you can start to have imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
I have just accepted the fact that I'm always going to have it, and I'm just going to work with it. So I don't try to fight it. When I have it, I just feel it and I'm like, oh, it's fine, I learn. So I've taken out the word failure from my head completely. So
Awesome.
the way I see it is, I will either win or I will learn.
Right.
Both are great outcomes. So
Right.
that's the perspective I've just kind of stuck with, and I think it's really helped me because my journey has been very organic. Like, I'm not a big career planner. Like, I don't know what I'll do in 2 years. I didn't know 2 years back I was going to move to India. So it's just, I just go with the flow, keep this mindset, and just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's a brilliant recipe, and that's a great mindset, right? And especially one of the things which really starts is that, I mean, since you and I have been in these kind of roles where we have been supported, we have benefited from these allyship, whether it is our leaders, men, women. I think we could play those narratives and see how we can make it more easier for future
Yeah.
generations.
And having a supportive partner, I think, is like game changing.
Absolutely,
So
that's a choice one should consciously make.
yes, yes. I tell all the women who are single, I'm like, if you're ambitious in your career and really want to focus on it, make sure your partner is equally excited about your ambition.
Exactly, exactly. No, very, very, very well summarized. Okay, I'm going to probably, ask if you have to think about, let's say, some two or three pointers, right? I mean, we are seeing more and more folks coming over to become tech savvy, digital savvy, right? So I would say in the years to come, we are going to have more such platforms. We are going to have more people join in, connect with each other on various social platforms. How do you think that, tech and design can help in building such forward-looking, inclusive platforms? Priyanka, you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So see, one thing is we talked about the safety and privacy and all of these things, right?
Right.
And also data protection laws across the world are getting a lot stronger.
Hmm.
So I think for companies that are building these products, this stuff can no longer be an afterthought. You have to kind of start, as you're building product, you have to start thinking about these things parallelly. So I think that is one thing. The other thing is how we build our teams to build these products. Like a lot of the more your team represents your user base, the better your products will be. I'll give you one example. At WhatsApp, we had India is one of WhatsApp's largest markets, but we had Indian people. Like I'm Indian origin on the WhatsApp team, but we didn't have designers who are from India who have actually
Hmm.
done work here. So we decided we're going to hire 2 or 3 designers from India, and we will relocate them to London because US immigration is a nightmare. So we're building out the London office, and it took us some time, but we were very intentional about it, and we hired them. It was the best thing we ever did. The
Hmm.
perspectives they brought were just so different and so like far from what I thought, you know,
Right.
and so that was really good. So I think especially as with tech and design and all of these, like generally tech companies like growing and in building more products in the future, I think it's really important to make sure that inclusion is also happening in the way you're hiring your teams. We should,
Correct.
it pains me a little bit that in 2024 we're still talking about inclusion for women. It's like really unfortunate. But I think you have to be very intentional about it. You have to make sure that look, you always still have to hire the right person for the job, gender, without a gender bias, but you have to still be very inclusive when it comes to like the top of the funnel. Make sure that you are interviewing a diverse pool of candidates. Push your TA teams to source qualified candidates that are non-men, that are just more like just have a diverse pool, and then you filter down from there. So I think that is also extremely important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as much as you learn from your users, if you have that kind of a diversity within your team,
Yeah.
it kind of resonates. It kind of I think, very organically flows into the design of the product.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think these are like intangibles, like data is not going to tell you that having more women or more men is going to make your product better. It's
Correct.
just something you have to do, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Completely agree. Completely agree. Muru, what do you think from a tech perspective here?
No, first on the people side, I want to add, one of the things we focus in HerKey is we do a monthly and a quarterly review on our talent pool. Okay. Like Priyanka said, we also make a very conscious effort in bringing in the diversity within each teams. So holistically, we look at the organization, how many people are there, and also within each department, we look at the diversity. So, and then we tell TA team to say, may ensure the next person hired is a woman or a man. In some cases, we have the opposite problem. We have too many men in some teams, and we say we have to bring in men. So that is also happening. But yeah, so that's something we consciously look
In
at.
fact, Muru, I probably want to add here because this was during my initial days at HerKey, and we were hiring product managers, right? So I would float. I'm in a bunch of product management groups, so I would send out these positions.
Right.
And I think by default, people saw the name and they assumed that these positions are only for women.
Yeah, it says HerKey,
Interesting.
right?
Right, right. So I have to say, guys, we are building a platform for women, but we want to be as diverse as it can be, right? So that men are also part of the team. So we did have the reverse problem. Sorry, Muru, go on.
No, no, that's fine. On the tech side, when I look at it, it's probably going to be AI and machine learning, right? So that's definitely any industry is going to be hit by that, and it'll be a force. It's coming, and I think all of us have to adapt to it. So at HerKey, what we are doing is we also have a roadmap, particularly AI roadmap for HerKey, right? So we built it, and we have a 3-year roadmap, in fact, for the whole product. But AI, particularly, we looked at different aspects. One of the areas we are looking at is providing personalized experience. That's one of the things we want to look at every journey the women actually seeks on the platform. We give her the more personalized experience on the platform. And data, that's going to be the key. And ultimately, when you look at when we become a 30 million women on our platform, it is definitely capturing the nuances and data what we do throughout the platform, and that's the richness, and that's going to be the gold which we are capturing throughout all of the years we are working on this platform, and that's going to refine the future. The more we have enough data about and that's what Google has done. Everybody loves Google product is because for that very reason, because they understand every data element for that user, and they try and give it like a recipe which is just in time, right? And that's what we are looking at in HerKey as well. And I think that's going to be in most of the industries, but we are very closely aligned towards that, and that's the differentiator we want to bring on our platform. The women, one of the things I spoke about, the re-engagement and what is the safe space for a woman to come in, right? It has to be just beyond just a transactional conversation she has on the platform. So it
Yeah.
has to be this, so which actually feels that okay, every day before going to bed or as soon as I wake up in the morning, HerKey app is the first thing a woman has to look at. So that's our dream. So and that has to be personalized. Unless I get to the personalization what she wants, it's not going to be an interesting aspect for us. So
Yeah.
that's that. I would say that's the trend we watch for, and we're going to towards that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. I mean, with these questions, I can just go on and
Yeah.
these things. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to move to the segment two, right? And I'm going to start with Priyanka. Priyanka, you are now managing a gaming platform, right? And since we are speaking about more, platforms for women, somewhere I read that in India, I think 30% of the population of gamers is actually women. I don't know how
Wow.
true this is, but this was some report that I read a few months back. So, as a gaming platform, are you guys also observing a good number of women playing games? And are there something specific that you kind of observe in terms of the way they use the product?
Yeah, so I think Dream 11 is more of a fantasy sports platform. So it's like it's clubbed under online gaming, but there's no real game in Dream 11. It's tied to your the sport events that are happening,
Right,
right? Like your IPL and other tournaments and things like
right.
that. There is in general a rise in women in gaming across the world, whether
Hmm.
it is fantasy sports, whether it's casual gaming. The differences that I've noticed, and not necessarily specific to Dream 11, but in general, just doing some research on this, is that women tend to enjoy games that are like faster, like more gratification sooner, that sort of a thing. But we're also seeing, like I've also been reading, where women can be a subject of harassment. Like women can be harassed, like, especially like like you have all these gaming platforms like Discord and all these things, right?
Right.
um it's still not like a safe space for women. So I
Mm-hmm.
have read reports where people say that I'm a woman but I mask as a man when I'm playing. I love gaming, but when I'm playing with all these guys, I don't want to like be a woman. I would rather just call myself a guy. so
Okay.
so those sort of things, right? I think so there's a lot of work to be done here.
Hmm.
And I think because gaming was so much like a guy thing,
Hmm.
um, it's just become acceptable that it's for guys, so it's going to have certain lingo or a certain look and feel. But I think it needs to start evolving to becoming gender agnostic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to make it pink.
Correct.
Never make
I
it
agree.
pink. But because I remember when I was in college, I was a hardcore gamer. I used to play like first person shooter games, Need for Speed, all of these things so much,
Yeah.
and I'm talking 20 years back.
Yeah, I remember NFS. NFS was big.
Yeah, Max Payne, that was like my absolute favorite game.
Yeah.
So I'm like dating myself here a little bit, but it's so I feel like women have always been there in pockets, but now it's a little more pronounced. And I was talking to this founder actually of a very popular fantasy sports app in the US, and he was telling me like 35% of their users
Hmm.
are women, and it's only growing. So
Right.
the way they have designed their product, um, it's not feminine in any way, but
Hmm.
it still feels like, oh, when I go in there, this app is for me. So to
Right.
hit that sweet spot is like, I think, real talent. But also like even in India right now with and of course like I've just been here 1.5 year now, so I'm still learning some things. But uh, even with like women's cricket, like it
Hmm.
wasn't a thing when I was growing up here. Now
Right.
it's like really become a thing, which is great. So I think
Yeah,
it's like
obviously they're doing so
it's
well.
yeah, and it's not just engaging in the if you ask a lot of women, like, hey, do you follow women's cricket, they'll likely say, no, I follow the men's cricket, and that's fine. But I think the ecosystem, right, the entire ecosystem is evolving, like your fandom as well as sports, like
Correct.
being more inclusive and all of that, which is very cool.
Correct. No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, those are some great insights. Yeah. Muru, I mean, now it's been about a couple of years since you've been handling HerKey, right? Did you have any surprising moments the way you saw how women, or even before that, right, while building your products, how women are using social platforms?
Yeah, before I go to that, I want to appreciate the RCB team of women because they are the champions of IPL. And being in Bangalore, I have to say that, RCB women team they got the cup. Isala cup, at least cup namde. Yeah, okay. Switching back to your question. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say truly a surprising moment or insight. One thing we've discovered is when we looked at HerKey, we did something a little unique, and that was appreciated by a lot of women. No other platform provides this. We call something called life experience of a woman, right? We have a
Hmm.
life page for a woman, right? A lot of times this is not even valued or not even seen in anybody's profile. Typically in any profile you look at, you only look at the professional experience they've had, what is their technical skills, what kind of projects they've handled, what are the roles they have played, and so on, right? One thing which we discovered, and I think it's well appreciated by women, in fact in the recent conferences also I got acknowledgement from women. You got to showcase more of that, life experiences of a women. We call that as 4 M's in our platform. It starts off with marriage, 4 M's of a woman's life, right? So marriage, mobility, uh, and then medical care. I mean, these are things which are part of our platform, and we want to actually capture that. What is the life experience she brings on the table? And in fact, I've told recruiter to look at this. Very important. Please focus on that aspect also. That actually reveals what that person is all about, right? What
Correct.
experiences they've had beyond just the career aspect of it. So I
Correct.
mean, that I think was probably a aha moment. I would say we kind of found. The other thing is, how women react to post and the time spent on the platform, right? Insta, for example, I don't think anybody can beat them, but our goal is to kind of get into the double digit time spent, average time spent on our platform. So that is something we're focusing on, and how do we actually improvise on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, these
No,
are some
that's right.
aspects. I would say that 4 M's and life experience is something which is unique to HerKey.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. And I remember having this conversation, right? I don't know, Priyanka, if you recall, for example, even in one of the very professional platform that we all are there, until COVID happened, there was no way that I could say that I'm on a break or I
Agreed.
am,
Yep.
I have taken motherhood, right? So it was only after we started to talking, and especially now, let's say for example, I being a mother, I think one of the things which I learned was multitasking after managing, like, my younger ones, right? It gives you so many transferable skills, and no platform helps
Yeah.
you to capture that, and that is one of the
Well,
things that we do.
yeah, even today though, in fact, the other day, a friend of mine who's on a break, she was asking me, she's like, "What should I put here?" Because I don't want to say I took a break just to like step back from work and focus on family for 6 months. And
Right.
I was
No,
like, "You
that's
should
true.
not be worrying about that right now. Like, it's crazy."
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that everybody appreciates, because even today, for example, there are questions that I get from my mentees which says that if people interviewer asks me, why did you take that break? Should I lie or should I tell the truth?
Yeah,
Should I even put that I have a break in my resume?
yeah,
So
it's tricky.
it's
It's
tricky.
tricky.
It's still a slippery slope.
Yeah, and it's I think it also depends like on the like culturally, in different
Right.
countries how it's perceived. Like I bet in Europe it's not seen that
Yeah, you are agreeing. Yeah, I think it's,
unfavorably.
we are still a
Yeah.
developing nation.
Yeah,
So
yeah, agreed. Agreed,
yeah,
agreed.
yeah, that's true.
No,
Yeah, those are no.
Malti, on that note, one of the things we, particularly focus is women returnees on our platform,
Yeah.
right? We encourage women to talk about their break. Put it in your resume. It's fine. Talk about it and tell why you took a break, because that makes the person more confident. And
More
that's
real.
one of the things we constantly tell our users to say. Please don't shy away from what you've done.
Correct.
There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
talking about it. So, I think it is helping, and companies are hiring it because and there's nothing they've lost. It's actually, as you said, there's no failures. Priyanka, I loved your way you looked at it. It's ultimately a learning. It's not a failure, right? Even you would
Yeah,
have had a break
exactly.
for some reason, whatever the reasons could be. It's better to kind of say that. So returnee women is our prime focus as well. So just want to highlight that what we support on our platform.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, no,
I do want to plug one thing that I'm really proud of. At WhatsApp, I piloted this program. This is a meta-wide program, but we had never done this at WhatsApp. So I piloted this program where it's called Return to Work. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be. It's a program where if you have been out of the workforce for 2 years,
Okay.
only then you can apply.
Cool.
You have to have been out of the workforce for a couple of years, and then you apply, and then we give you like 6 months fully paid, all benefits, everything covered, 6 months of employment and a project, and depending on how you do, um, you get an offer to join the company.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like it's really cool. And the interesting thing about this, 99.9% of the applicants are women.
True.
Wow.
And it's not a
Yeah.
thing for women, it's just like a program for anybody, but
Oh,
most
that's
of
really
them
cool.
are women.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we really need, while not every company does, and I really wish, as you said, Priyanka, earlier, that hopefully we don't need such programs, but these programs such really gives them a, level playing field so that they are not devoid of any opportunities,
Correct. That's
right?
right, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, completely makes sense. Okay, with this, I want to kind of move on to the last segment of my conversation. Yes, and this is going to be a rapid fire round. And Priyanka, I'm going to start with you.
Oh,
Okay.
hot seat.
There's like coffee with Karan. I'm going
I
to
know.
fire, you're also going to fire.
It's a lot
Is
of
there
time to put a hamper.
is there a hamper at the end?
Everybody is a winner here, so no hamper.
Okay.
Actually, see, so far I have had only one guess, right? So there was no really competition here. So this is the first time. So I'll take the cues from here. Okay. So Priyanka, first one for you. One app that you love for its UX.
Oh my God, this is so hard. I cannot answer this question. I like any app that does one thing and does it really well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so today I used Uber and I really like the experience. So for today it's Uber.
Okay. All right. Okay. The most important quality in a design leader.
You cannot be a design leader if you are not an exceptional designer yourself.
Wow. Absolutely. That's a core trait. Okay. What's your go-to source for design inspiration?
People, just talking to
Mm-hmm.
people and understanding their motivations. And then, of course, I also like things like more, art, like posters and products that are well crafted, well finished, attention to detail, that sort of stuff I really like.
Oh, okay. So very truly human-centered.
Yes, yes. And I am a hardcore designer at heart. I will always be that. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Priyanka.
cool.
Okay, over to you, Muru.
Sure.
One book that every engineering leader should read.
My favorite is the Phoenix Project by Jenny Kim. It's a novel which talks about IT and even when DevOps was not evolved. So that's a great book, and I would always recommend. And that actually ties the business and also talks about challenges of delivering a product. So
Okay, awesome. First thing you do when you face a roadblock.
actually, I take a walk, but
That's great.
but the first step I do is identify what's the root cause, and
Yeah,
then actually come up with understanding the situation and what's really needed from a solution standpoint. So
yeah. So the walk really calms you down?
walk, just take your headphone and walk.
Okay, all right. So next time you're walking, I think I should anticipate that you have a roadblock.
Yeah, I usually don't say it so, but you caught me. Yes.
Okay, if not tech, what career would you choose?
Oh, anytime soccer player. Actually, I was part of the soccer team in the school. I was a captain, and I used to
Wow.
be a corporate captain as well. So anytime a soccer player.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you guys. This was like so much fun. This was like
Yeah,
so
this
much
is
fun.
great. This is
Great.
great and great questions, Malti. So thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you. No,
thank you, Malti and Priyanka. It's been a pleasure, meeting you and sharing your insight. And as Malti said, she knows what's going on in HerKey, and we are super excited to build this. And Malti, your questions were probably more straight towards HerKey and my experience around HerKey, but it was really good. Thank you for
yeah.
getting us
No,
together.
I think, I mean, I know that I am privy to a lot of what's going on at HerKey because I'm part of HerKey as well. But yeah, I think the idea was to, together as a team, how do we talk about goodness of a lot of things happening around us, not only at what we do. And I think it was a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed. I never knew when the last hour just flew by.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
Cool.
you.
Thank you,
right.
folks. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Product Talk with Malti.